Now, we have members of the United States military that have been put in an impossible situation because they're given, in the case of what we've seen here over the last couple of days, clearly unlawful, illegal orders. And there's tremendous pressure on them. And that was the point, of our video, is just to remind, members of the military that they have an obligation to follow the law. It wasn't specific to this case, but when you consider who this Secretary of Defense is and who this president is, we felt it was a very important message to get to our warfighters.
A few moments later.
2 survivors climbed back onto the boat after the initial strike. They were believed to be potentially in communication with others and salvaging some of the drugs. Because of that, it was determined they were still in the fight and valid targets. A JAG officer was also giving legal advice. So again, David, that video will be key, and Admiral Bradley will be on the Hill tomorrow behind closed doors.
Boy. So you got to talk about Stephen A. Smith on The View, who was pressed over and over again by the cackling hens to trash Trump and Republicans. And let's just say that Stephen A. Smith was a little bit more nuanced on this episode than the cackling hens would have liked, especially when it comes to the standard Trump deranged talking points, the blue anon conspiracy theories about President Trump. Like, for example, that President Trump is a secret pedophile who participated in crimes with Jeffrey Epstein. The cackling hens confronted Stephen A. about that, and Stephen A. was not going for it.
Even as we wait the release of the Epstein files, House Oversight Democrats released this trove of really creepy photos from inside Jeffrey Epstein's private island.
Yep.
So I want to ask you, is this the tip of the iceberg? What do you think the Trump administration will actually and ultimately release? And if they have nothing to hide, why did they fight so forcefully against this?
Well, I'm suspicious. I'm suspicious in terms of, the hesitancy in releasing the Epstein files, particularly when it's something you campaigned on.
Yeah.
So I think in that regard, fine. But I also believe that there are people that have seen the Epstein files, and if there was something directly incriminating about Trump, it's something that we would have found out about it before the election, because every measure would have been exhausted to make sure he didn't return to the White House. I do believe, however, when you have power brokers in place, what happens is on both sides of the aisle, it could be people in those Epstein files that can be severely incriminated, obviously. And
anybody they protect each other.
Well, they protect each other. And
you don't think Trump is in the files? I mean, he was mentioned over 1,000 times.
I'm not saying he wasn't in the file. It wasn't in the files. I'm saying that if it was something really, really incriminating against him, I think we would have heard about it by now. I think him and others on both sides of the aisle they have friends that they're trying to protect.
Well, and it could be billionaires and people that
sure, that's what I'm talking about.
their whole
that's what I'm talking
yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. And let's not.
But wasn't Trump?
Let's not act like that's a surprise.
He says he was a very close friend of his. I mean, he denies that.
Once upon a time, he did say that. But there's also videos of him calling out Epstein and saying, down the line, beware, because there's going to be some dirt you're going to find out about this man.
Yeah, but remember what year he said that?
2015.
Yeah. That's kind of.
They did reportedly have a falling out, but...
They did. I heard it was over some property in Florida, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the excuses for it is what it is. But
yeah, so Stephen A. was not going for that blue anon conspiracy theory. So they try again with another blue anon conspiracy theory that President Trump is cognitively declining like Joe Biden, something that they refused to acknowledge, something that they told us was not real. Now, all of a sudden, everybody in the mainstream level media, they're worried about President Trump's cognitive decline, even though, again, President Trump is in much better shape than Joe Biden was. But they weren't concerned about Joe Biden.
So let's talk about this, because Trump is claiming that he aced the cognitive test. Mm-hmm. Even though he's going on late night Truth Social tirades, in the middle of the night, he's texting and calling Governor Walz a name that we don't use anymore to disability. He's attacking female reporters as piggy and ugly. Mm-hmm. He's falling asleep in the middle of a meeting. I mean, I said yesterday that Marco Rubio is boring, but not that boring that he would fall asleep. So what do you think's going on with him?
Trump is being Trump.
Really? There's nothing cognitively wrong there?
Well, I'm not saying whether there is or isn't. What I'm saying is 77 million people don't care. They voted for him. And those same 77 million people
is it still that number?
They would do it. Well, you could say that it is or isn't, but the point is he's the president of the United States. Despite the onslaught of stuff that was coming his way, he knocked off folks, and the Democrats let him because they weren't on their game. Now you have to look at, because obviously he's not going to circumvent the 22nd Amendment, which will enable him to run for a third term. So now you're talking about J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is considered the adult in the room, the Secretary of State, National Defense, the National Security Advisor. You got J.D. Vance, he's the vice president, but he seems more Trump-ish in terms of how he conducts himself and how he's willing to go after people. So who is Trump going to support? One of the things that I talked about on my show was that I said, don't fall for it. Look at what Trump is doing. Trump is positioning himself to remain in power even if he isn't the president. Yeah. He wants to make sure he maintains that level of influence.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. Again, what I found to be so fascinating about this interview is not that Stephen A. was unwilling to criticize Trump. He was just unwilling to do so based off the blue and on conspiracy theories, right? He was willing to criticize the president on his own terms, but not on the terms of these cackling hens. And clearly you could see that was frustrating them, because usually when they bring on guests, they only bring them on to attack Trump, right? Political guests. They will bring on a Republican, like, for example, Marjorie Taylor Greene, if they feel like they can use it as an opportunity to go after President Trump. And clearly they wanted Stephen A. Smith to go after President Trump based off the blue and on talking points that they tried to serve up to him, okay? They tried to toss Stephen A. an alley-oop, right? Stephen A. said, nah, I'm good, right? He didn't even jump, right? He didn't even jump. That's the funny part about it. So the frustration built during this segment because Sunny Hostin confronted Stephen A. about his criticisms of the seditious 6 Democrats, the treasonous Democrats that released a video telling members of the military to disobey President Trump, to not follow illegal orders from the commander-in-chief, even though they cannot articulate what were the illegal orders, right? What orders has President Trump given that are illegal, okay? And Stephen A. went off on Democrats for that. And Sunny Hostin is going to confront Stephen A. for going after Democrats on this issue. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
If he stays awake.
Anticipate he's going to be awake.
My friend, I want to talk to you about the bombing, my friend.
Yes.
And some things that you recently said. Sure. You know I like you, right? Okay, so you recently accused Senator Mark Kelly, a veteran, an astronaut, of crossing the line.
A Democrat, right? Most importantly, a Democrat.
For participating in a video reminding troops that they can refuse to follow illegal orders. Okay. Let's see some of what you said, my friend.
Sure.
You know better, Senator Kelly. You know better. How dare you do that? You could go to the House. You can put up drawer paperwork. You can try to start articles of impeachment if you think there's something illegal. I mean, damn, it ain't like y'all haven't done it before. You impeached the man twice. Where'd that get you? Got his behind back in the White House. Had you left him alone since 2020, maybe he wouldn't be back. You don't tell military men and women to ignore an order from the commander-in-chief. You don't do that.
Caffeine's a bitch, you know?
Now, let me just remind you that Pete Hegseth said in 2016, I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crimes. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief. Okay. Now, given the fact that the secretary himself said that, I'd love to give you the opportunity to perhaps change your position on what you said.
I'm not changing a thing.
Okay.
I didn't stutter when I said it.
You want to stay loud and wrong?
Well, you can call it loud and wrong all you want to. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine. Okay. Here's the reality of the situation. First of all, I don't give a damn what Pete Hegseth has to say because I will tell you right now, he was never qualified for the job. When you talk about DEI and eradicating that, excuse me, what was he doing hosting Fox News on the weekend and all of a sudden he's the defense secretary? Please, give me a break. I don't care what he has to say. Let me get that out the way. As it pertains to Mark Kelly, what I was talking about is military. What I did was get on the phone with family and friends who have served in the military. And I said, we're not civilians. This is not the court of law. You can be implicated for implying something if you are a former military member or you are a present military member. It wasn't what Mark Kelly said. It's the fact that he was a combat Navy pilot who served in the military who would tell folks, ignore an order when it could get them in the war.
I
said illegal. I said illegal. I'm talking about illegal. I understand that.
He said you don't have to follow an an unlawful order, and that is in the military code of conduct.
And I'm saying to you, hold on, which I'm aware of.
But it didn't sound like you were aware of that.
Well, no. I disagree with you.
Stephen, can I ask you a question?
I had 2 governors, by the way, text me to tell me I was wrong, and they agree with you.
You are wrong.
I had 2 senators that reached out to me and said, you weren't wrong at all.
Well, Mikey Sherrill did say that the reason they felt the need to put that out is they were constantly being approached by people in the military saying, we're being put in really uncomfortable situations.
But
that to me is a little more relatable when you're a veteran yourself.
But I'm saying let me say this real quick.
You got to do real quick. Or wait till we come back.
All I'm saying is this. If you're a member of the military, I'm looking at the soldiers as saying, don't get yourself in trouble. Let somebody else do it. Don't you do it because it ain't gonna work for you.
But you get
Sorry, that was Alyssa Slotkin, not Mikey Sherrill.
I'm sorry. Okay, so whoever it was, you can clean up when we come back because we have more with Stephen A. Smith when we return.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. I found it hilarious how they went to commercial break on that segment because clearly Sunny Hostin was not happy with Stephen A. Smith criticizing Democrats, the Seditious Six, for putting out a video basically encouraging members of the military to disobey the commander-in-chief without articulating exactly what orders did he give that are illegal, right, or unlawful. And that's the problem. And I wish Stephen A. would have articulated that to Sunny Hostin, which is that the problem is that when you make a claim like that and you put out a video like that, especially as a former member of the military, and you don't say exactly what are the unlawful orders, that creates chaos and confusion, right? And Mark Kelly is actively going out his way to do just that because he claims that members of the military should know, right? It should be very obvious what's lawful and what's not lawful, but yet he can't tell you what's lawful and what's not lawful. He can't articulate one thing that President Trump has ordered that is unlawful. Right now, they're talking about the whole boat strike thing, right? The second strike. Oh, there were survivors and Pete Hegseth ordered the survivors to be killed, right? You know, it's a very funny thing that the media does because it's almost as if they forgot that not too long ago, Barack Hussein Obama ordered an airstrike against an American citizen in the Middle East. An American citizen was killed with no trial, no jury, no charges, no due process whatsoever. And I don't remember the mainstream liberal media boo-hooing and crying about that as much as the boo-hooing and crying about these alleged drug dealers, right? These drug runners, right? That are being killed by the Trump administration. I don't remember the mainstream liberal media being as upset when Obama killed not just one, but multiple American citizens without any due process in the Middle East with CIA drone strikes. Now, if what Obama did was legal, because Obama argued that from an executive authority perspective, they can do their own due process review, right? And if they determine that they're targets and that they should be killed, they can do that. That's what the Obama administration set the precedent for, right? And Trump is only operating within that same legal framework, except these drug boats are not American citizens, right? If what Obama did is okay and legal, which, by the way, we're not talking about Obama going to jail for that, right? We're not talking about Obama committing war crimes or violating the Constitution or giving unlawful orders, right? Because apparently you can drone strike an American citizen abroad, right? If you are the president of the United States with no due process. That's perfectly legal, okay? And we know, and again, I'm just saying because Obama's not in jail. He's not in jail for it. He's not in prison for it. So clearly it's legal, right? How can you argue? How can you, seriously, how can you logically argue that what President Trump is doing with these drug boats from Venezuela, how is that illegal when what Obama did is legal? It doesn't make sense, right? It's hypocrisy. If you're talking about Pete Hegseth being in trouble or Trump being in trouble for what's happening in Venezuela, then we should go ahead and charge Obama, right? Let's go ahead and get him on trial, okay? Because he set the precedent for it. The Trump administration is only operating within the same framework that the Obama administration operated in. And what President Trump is doing right now is on way more stable legal grounds. than what Obama did, right? What Obama did was extreme. But again, where was the outrage? Where was the outrage back then? Were they saying that Obama's Secretary of Defense needs to resign? Was they saying that Obama should be impeached, right? Where was the outrage from the media back then? Because I guarantee you they were not nearly as outraged about what Obama did compared to the outrage right now.
Is completely invested in getting Maduro out. We've got 1/4 of the arsenal of the U.S. Navy parked off the coast of Venezuela.
Protecting American interests.
What is the American interest? Oil?
Drugs pouring into this country and killing us?
Most drugs do not come through Venezuela. Then why aren't you bombing Mexico?
So we closed the southern border, and that did a really good job. Stop. That's a ridiculous argument.
You stop.
No, that's a ridiculous argument.
No, you're the one being ridiculous.
The president you advocated for 4 years, Joseph R. Biden, allowed our border to be open.
I'm
not gaslighting. Did Joe Biden let in tons and tons and tons? Well, tell that to the families of fentanyl families who have died.
No, fentanyl comes from Venezuela.
It comes from the southern border to the point you made.
Mexico.
Hold on a second.
If your argument that drugs are not coming from Colombia or Venezuela to America.
Oh, I am going to argue that no fentanyl is coming from Venezuela.
Talk to the DEA.
No, you are wrong. And you are lying to the American people. You are part of the fabricating a narrative that doesn't exist.
Hold on a second.
Well, your day job is The View, so let's talk about fabricating.
And you have no day job. You just lost yours.
Harrison, you are wrong.
I'm not wrong.
Yes, you're wrong. Because you just mixed up a whole bunch of stuff there.
No, I didn't.
So, Harrison, I mean, they're pretty clear that this is not about the drug. Nobody wants to defend drug traffickers, but what they're doing is defending Americans who might be put in similar situations.
Well, I'm glad you said that no one wants to defend drug traffickers, because that's what it seems that the Democratic Party is doing.
What about
this
these
is the
Republicans?
same thing they did with the Maryland father of four.
But what about these Republicans, Rand Paul, Don Bacon, Tom Tillis? You heard
these are the same characters that will always do this. But the reality is, this is all manufactured. This is all manufactured. If you listen to you and if you listen to some of these other people, you think they're taking out Theo's fishing boat or a Royal Caribbean cruise. These are designated
Did you listen to anything that was said in those clips?
Designated narco terrorists that are coming to this country.
Did you listen to anything that was said in the clips?
Yes, I did.
Did you listen, as Tom Tillis says,
and it's all
our men
whataboutism.
and women,
They have
hold
no
on,
facts.
no, not whataboutism.
Yes, it is.
He says our men and women get into situations where they may be blown out of the water.
May.
And we are putting our forces at
Let's
risk
talk about what's
if we're
actually
setting or lowering the bar for actually honoring rules of engagement.
That's all great, but that's all hypothetical. Let's talk about what's actually happening. And the good thing is,
can we just take a beat?
You have the Department of War
take a beat
briefing these
and
members.
Address the basic. This is not a partisan dispute, right?
Not at
That's
all.
one of the reasons I played this, because it's not about partisanship. It's about how do we want to be treated on the world stage. And I assume
And when you
that
ask our European
about
allies,
how
they're
Americans,
celebrating what this president is
Hold
doing.
on a second.
Because to Anna's point, it's
Harrison,
protecting Europe.
that
And if you
was
ask the
also
American people...
Hold on, that's also in question.
Yes.
There was reporting just a couple of weeks ago that the British has stopped sharing intelligence with us
exactly right.
because they were concerned about the legality of these strikes. So, but
yeah, hilarious, absolutely hilarious, right? It's just funny how that works. Okay, again, Obama can kill American citizens in the Middle East, right? No due process. You know, they ignore that. They don't really care that much. They didn't make a big deal out of it, right? But when it comes to some drug boats getting blown up in the Caribbean, oh, war crime, oh, it's so terrible, so bad. Impeach. Get rid of Pete Hegseth. Oh, right. It's funny because Anna Navarro, considering how she fled communism, right? For whatever reason, she, doesn't have a problem with Nicolas Maduro, right? And what's happening in Venezuela. It really goes to show you how much she sold her soul to the Democrat Party, right, and to the far left. I mean, there's not a Republican bone or a conservative bone in her body. I don't understand why is that she still claims to be a conservative or Republican. But my point is that the fake outrage from Democrats is something I'm not going to fall for, right? I personally have no reason to believe, considering the precedent that Obama set, that anything that President Trump is doing right now is illegal, right? And that's why I don't have a problem with it. Right? I don't have a problem with it, regardless of what the intent is, okay? I mean, if we are stopping drugs from coming into this country, whether that be fentanyl or cocaine, I'm cool with that, right? And if it just so happens that Maduro gets overthrown or that he steps down as a result, I'm cool with that too, right? So, I mean, I don't understand. Like, these people are making a big deal out of it and trying to pretend like there's some huge scandal or something, wrong is happening here. And I'm like, no, I think that this is just the Monroe Doctrine, and yeah, that's it, right? That's what's going on here, and I don't have a problem with it. But I do have a problem with Democrats who are trying to get in the way of what the president is doing by insinuating that his orders are illegal when they're not, right? I do have a big problem with that. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.